As many of you have heard, I often use the word embodiment. And embodiment, we could say, it really doesn't begin to happen until after awakening. And awakening can be a very powerful, profound shift or experience, or it can be something very subtle. And there's no set way that it happens. But one of the contexts for the deepening, for the embodiment that I like to use is head, heart, gut. When it's centered more in the head, which is a funny way of saying that because the mind doesn't wake up. Awakening is synonymous with disidentification. So if you're awake on the level of mind, it means you're disidentified from mind. Your awakeness is no longer able to be caught in the conceptual layer of experience. When that's predominant, there tends to be more of a transcendent witness. So the quality is like beyond, and I'm watching my experience that's way over there. And it can be flat. I often get that question from people who are resting there. Is that it? And it's not it. It's opening in you. But the flat or the dead emptiness is moving towards fullness. And the fullness starts being experienced on the level of heart, we could say, awakened heart. So when our awakeness begins to disidentify from emotion, which is it requires a deeper degree of, deeper brightness of presence, of consciousness. These emotions are much more sticky. Not sticky too, but it's easier to penetrate. Emotions they're stickier. If you can just imagine being triggered. Can be open and then in an instant closed. The sensitive heart. It's supposed to be sensitive. We can think that, oh, I shouldn't be sensitive, but we are pure sensitivity. Awakening is about regaining our innocence, our sensitivity, our ability to feel very deeply, to feel suffering, to feel love deeply. And so when we start contacting that, and a sense of disidentification happens on that level, it now loosens up our experience, we could say. So now we begin to experiencing more of the divine qualities. And these are the qualities of presence, of bliss, of love. It's love more in its unconditioned state. It's state of freedom. It's not sticky. So it's love for love's sake, endless love, as opposed to when we're more closed, there's a sense of like, well, there's only a limited supply of love, so I need to focus on, one object of love. And it's very dangerous to open that way, so I got to be very careful of who I choose. And it's more loose. It's not afraid of losing itself because it knows that there's an infinite supply. And so as that experience of fullness begins to be experienced in a more subtle way, this is often what we're used to hearing. In the East, they speak about this sense of subtlety, this sense of pure I am. Satchidananda, existence, consciousness, bliss. It's sort of like the most subtle layer of experience. It's pure I amness. Pure I amness that's shining forth with its fullness, with its subtlety, light and love and bliss. But then there's a place prior to I am. We could say it's deeper in the experience. It's more centered, we could say more in the gut, in the root. We could say things like no self. We could say things like the dissolving of identity. We could say things like it's where the self-referential mechanism of consciousness unloops. And what I'm speaking about with that is whether that looping function of consciousness goes out and there's a sense of feeling unworthy. So it goes out only a short distance and then it returns back to the center and says, I am unworthy. Or whether it's a very subtle, expanded sense of I am, where it goes out all the way to the edge of the universe and says, I am pure love, or I am bliss. And it comes back, and it's able to say, I am that. When it's more centered in the gut, it's as if that function of consciousness just goes out, but it doesn't come back. So it can't honestly say, I am that. You can't say anything, actually. You can't know anything. That's the infinite. You can't say anything about it because there's nothing to know about it. But in the end, it's really what enlightenment and awakening is all about. And it's funny because you don't really get anything from it. I mean, there's freedom, there's access to the divine qualities in a way that was never accessible before, but you're not caught by that. You're not so worried about feeling good. You're not so worried about being enlightened. Something in you just gets simpler and simpler. It's not about experiences, it's not about fireworks, it's not about divine qualities, it's not about doing something, saving the world. This is what the Buddha termed nirvana, cessation, extinction. Extinction of selfing. This quality of referring back, letting go of all states, light, dark, contracted, expanded, letting go of our tendency to run away from the dark, run away from the uncomfortable. It's just open heart. And the open heart is open just as much to suffering as it is to the purity of being, of love. So the quality of this state of no self, of this state of recognizing oneself as the infinite, that's beyond even being. It doesn't make a lot of sense when you put it into words, but it is. You can't get there through effort. There just needs to be something in you that's just willing to take your hands off the steering wheel and just say, fuck it. Take me wherever I need to go. I'm daring the possibility that my experience can just be whatever it is. And the beauty about this, of course, you can't do anything, you can't effort it, but you don't need to, because there's a constant force pulling you into that. It's like a black hole. That's how the metaphor that we see in the universe of a black hole, that's how it exists within a human experience. When we let go of control completely, what there actually is there's this active force, it is gravity, pulling us towards emptiness, pulling us towards enlightenment, pulling us towards the dissolving of identity.